This Tiffany Cross story, MSNBC host Tiffany Cross, is the story of millions of Americans. And within the context of her story, there are so many subtexts. You remember when Obamacare just passed several years ago, I came and I did a video and I said, Obamacare, and I wrote a blog about it. Obamacare saved my life. In Tiffany's case, I want you to listen to it because under her message, so many different subtexts that needs to be explored. Check this out. We'll take it on the other side.
This week, I'd like to share a personal story with all of you in hopes that it will help many of you who may be going through the exact same thing. So some of you who follow me on Instagram may know that this time last year, I was actually fresh out of the hospital on bed rest, recovering from a major surgery. For years, I lived with intense, debilitating, and shooting pain. I endured extremely heavy periods, and despite my best working out effort, I had a constantly protruding stomach. After hours in an emergency room one day, convincing doctors that there was actually something wrong with me, I discovered that what I was dealing with was not so uncommon at all. Just like more than 25 million other women, I had fibroid tumors. I thought if I could live with these tumors, maybe the pain would go away, but it never did. I began to research, and when I read about the disproportionate impact fibroids have on Black women, I was shocked. Dr. Lynn Lightfoot told me that she could perform my surgery. She could cut around the fibroids, which were on my uterus, and if I wanted to have kids, I'd better go out there and get pregnant as soon as possible and then have another surgery. Or they could remove my uterus entirely and the fibroids and painful periods would be gone. But so too would my ability to carry children. So I was already over 40, I wasn't married, and I had never met this baby I was supposed to have. I made the decision that was best for me and opted to have a full hysterectomy. Comfortable with my decision, I was ready for surgery. But there was only one problem. I had no steady job. I was in the middle of auditioning for this show, if you guys remember, and I had no steady income. Despite the perception that everyone who appears on TV is wealthy, I will let you know I was not paid a dime for appearing on any network then. And I had no health insurance. So like many of you, I was ill with very few options. So I looked into paying out of pocket. Maybe I could dig in my savings, gather some coins, but not quite. This type of surgery and the stay in the hospital was going to cost me tens of thousands of dollars that I just didn't have. And that's where Obamacare came in. I signed up, and the day it went into effect was the same day I had my surgery. And this, my friends, gave me an entirely new appreciation for how important covering pre-existing conditions are to so many of you out there. So for those who are squeamish, now would be a good time to look away. But I want you to see the size of the fibroid tumors doctors removed so you have an understanding of what I was dealing with. I was carrying that around for years. I stayed in the hospital for nearly 2 weeks under the great care of Dr. Lightfoot and my medical team. And after a few weeks, I was mobile. And after a few months, I was sitting in this very chair launching this very show.
First of all, Tiffany Cross, thank you so kindly for telling your story. It is important to keep these stories, these real stories, in the forefront, because politicians, as they're debating whether to give the human infrastructure bill a hearing, whether to provide all these services, whether to bring down Medicare to the year 60, whether to support Medicare for all, whether to allow all these features that help women, men, children, everybody. They don't understand the humanity within it, and that story tells your one story tells so many stories. All the people walking around Texas and elsewhere without health insurance. Women going through these pains, not being able to do anything about it because it would cost them tens of thousands of dollars they didn't have. And in a state like Texas, where even as much as we have Obamacare, because we don't have the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act, those women will suffer in perpetuity. I mean, it is important for us to get these messages out because we will then elect politicians that provide the laws necessary so that while Obamacare was able to help Tiffany Cross, it wouldn't help women in Texas in her same condition. It's amazing how these rules apply, how our politicians operate, how our states operate. But the second story, hear what she says. She was always working. She was working at different places, but in effect, working for free. That's not a bad thing. But should a society as a whole understand that there are people who are doing things that won't necessarily give them economic gain, but because of that, not afford them health care? This is America. This is the richest country in the world. When they tell you that a $3.5 trillion budget we can't afford, it is a lie. When they tell you that we spend too much on things we shouldn't, that's the truth, but only with the defense industrial complex and other corporate bills. The reality is we don't spend near enough on the things we should spend on. We don't spend near enough on education. We don't spend near enough on the social welfare of our citizens. Instead, we allow it all to accumulate to the top, to people who are not worth what they've taken away from the system. Tiffany, your story is important, but not only is your story important, it is necessary, it is imperative that people understand that that could be them and start supporting politicians with the appropriate policies. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.